What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Heat Chip Podcast. As always, joined here. I'm my co-host Joey. If you didn't check out yesterday's episode, make sure you go hit that up. We got a lot of NFL news to talk about yesterday, but today, no. Line is passed, so there's not a lot of big stuff to talk about, but we still got you hooked up with rankings. Let's start off with studs and duds. Want to hear who you got this week?
I got a guy that I'm tired of picking, but I have to pick him. Dalvin Cook versus Carolina. I'm just tired of talking about this guy. I'm moving on. Dalvin Cook is my stud.
Yeah, I got Dalvin Cook as my stud. And then for dud, I'm going to go ahead and roll through mine. I got a little bit of a hot take because you can't ever really bet against this guy, but he put up 3 against Indiana. A.J. Brown, I'm sorry, bud. I can't trust you this week. That Indiana secondary has been playing great, and the only guy who really has played okay or good, I don't know, with Devontae Adams. I'm pretty sure Devontae Adams had like 19 last week, or he could have had 25. Who knows? It's Devontae. But that's the exact thing. It's Devontae. A.J. Brown, he's not really touchdown dependent. He just gets touchdowns out of nowhere. He had a monster touchdown last week, but I don't think A.J. Brown has a good week this week. Probably 10 at the most, but this Indiana team, I mean, you never know. It's A.J. Brown. He could just break off a huge play against them. But, yeah, I feel like if there's anybody to be a dud this week, it's going to be A.J. Brown.
I don't usually pick against my own guys as the dud of the week, but I'm going Allen Robinson, the Bears wide receiver versus Green Bay this week. We don't know the QB situation right now. That could be a factor. Jair Alexander is definitely the biggest factor. Made me put Allen Robinson right here. He's gonna be on him all night. Jair's a stud this year, one of the, if not the best corners in the league right now, shutting down wide receiver ones every week. I'm going with Allen Robinson. Hopefully he can pull through for owners, but I just don't trust him this week as much as I usually do.
And then let's get into our rankings this week, starting off with the running backs. Of course, number 1, give me Cook. Number 2, Kamara. Those guys are never going to leave that spot unless they have a bye. Number 3, give me Nick Chubb against Jacksonville. Chubb has been getting good volume since he's came back. And I believe that's 2 100-yard games in a row. He just didn't get a touchdown last time around. And he's got a really favorable matchup against Jacksonville this week. So give me Chubb at 3. At 4, give me Jacobs against Atlanta. Atlanta, on paper, they have a good run defense. But knowing Atlanta, they'll probably just give up a lot of passing yards. They'll hand off to Jacobs, and he'll get like a 10, 15-yard touchdown because that's how good Josh Jacobs is. But either way, Jacobs usually gets about like 20 to 30 carries a game. So give me 4, Josh Jacobs. Number 5, return of Austin Eckler. He has been designated off of IR. He plays Buffalo. Buffalo has given up a good amount of points and has some poor performances against running backs this year. So bounce back game for Eckler here. Not really just a bounce back, but just a comeback game. Expect a lot of dump offs to Eckler, especially. Herbert loves doing that with the guys that he currently has. So give me Eckler at 5. At 6, give me Derrick Henry. I usually place him in the top 3 just because of how good his volume is, but it's Indiana. When he played Indiana last time, he only had 11. So I'm going to put Derrick Henry, put him down a little bit, but not out of the top 10. Definitely not. 7, give me Aaron Jones against Chicago. I mentioned it yesterday. Eddie Jackson is out for Chicago. That's going to be a big factor overall for that defense. And, Aaron Jones gets used enough in the pass game to where he's an easy, 14 to 17 points a week. And that's a running back 1 right there. There's nothing more that you can ask for. Reliability is what you really need this year. At 8, give me James Robinson against Cleveland. That QB situation over there, I don't know if Jake Luton is going to play this week or if Minshew's going to come back. But when Minshew has been in, James Robinson had incredible games. I mean, 15 at least from him. And this week against Cleveland, I feel like Cleveland can give up some points. Really, their secondary is the thing that scares me. You know, the whole driving down the field and then handing it off, getting into the end zone. James Robinson also gets used in the passing game enough. Put him here at 8. At 9, give me Miles Sanders against Seattle. Had a bit of a dud last week, but that whole Eagles team just played horrible. But they play Seattle this week. The 22nd against running backs. Miles Sanders, if he gets used enough in the passing game, then he will be probably lurking towards that top 7, top 6 range. But as of now, got to put him towards the bottom end of the top 10. And then at 10, give me my boy Zeke. 19 last week against Minnesota. Had a great week. Zeke owners out there, or for me, a guy who just traded for him. Zeke won me my game last week, and I'm sure he won a bunch of y'all's matchups last week. It really is a hard to choose between Zeke and Gibson, who I have at 11. They both could have good games, could have 15 plus point games here. But if there's anybody I would think would have a bigger week, I think it's Zeke just because of the whole Thanksgiving Day, home field. He's going to be playing with a little bit more passion. Gibson, though, is still going to be good. I wouldn't be surprised to see Gibson become the better back in this game, though, because he has looked phenomenal this year. Really has been one of the top breakout running backs for Washington. And then at 12, I got the return of Chris Carson in Philadelphia. Chris Carson looked great before he got injured. He was using the passing game a lot more than I thought he would ever be used because he's more of that third down type of power back. But Chris Carson looked great when he was healthy, and I feel like he gets around in the top 12 of running backs against Philadelphia this week. At 13, give me the other guy in Cleveland, Kareem Hunt. Didn't have that great of a week last week. He got into the end zone, but I believe his yardage was either short or it was in the negatives, and you never want that out of your running back. So I think Chubb's the better back here, the better play here overall. Hunt at 13. 14, give me Mike Davis in Minnesota. Davis, it doesn't look like McCaffrey's going to be coming back. It looks like they're going to hold off until after the bye. So McCaffrey owners going through the ringer right now. But yeah, Davis against Minnesota, Zeke put up 19. Davis could probably put up around 15, maybe 20. You know, you never know. Mike Davis has showed some really good games in the past. And then at 15, it's really flip-flop, all right? You could really put any guy between Swift, Bernard, or Gurley here because Gurley plays Las Vegas. He has a really good matchup, but I wouldn't put Gurley in the top 15. Swift is still going through concussion protocol, so if you are a Swift owner, make sure you keep an eye out on that because they do have a Thursday game, so you really do want to make sure you plan out to where if Swift is injured, that's not going to ruin your week. So if he's in, Swift at 15. If not, Bernard against New York. I thought Swift was going to have a good week last week, but he didn't even play. So, yeah, those are my top 15 running backs. Want to see what you got for wide receivers.
All right, before I start, I just want to say Julio is not on this list because apparently he has a game time decision. I want to be safe. He didn't have the best week last week either. I just want to be safe. I just want to make that clear before I start this. He's not in this for a reason. He definitely would be if he would play. If he was confirmed to play, but we don't know yet. But at number one, every week it's going to be Devontae Adams unless he gets injured. I'm playing. He showed out against the Colts, and he should show out against Chicago. I don't really care who's guarding him at this point. He's matchup proof. Just play him. Number two, give me Tyreek Hill. Back-to-back weeks that were just great. These targets are going up like crazy. He plays Tampa Bay though. You could be scared, but I'm not scared at all. It's Tyreek Hill. He doesn't care who's guarding him, and neither does Mahomes. He's gonna throw the ball to Tyreek Hill. Number three, somebody who's moved up in the rankings because of that performance last week, Keenan Allen. He plays Buffalo. He's on Tre'Davious White. You could be scared of that. But again, these guys are matchup proof. Like these top 7, top 8 people, they're really matchup proof. You can't really sit any of these guys. Keenan Allen, he's a certified stud now. One of the best receivers. You could move him a little lower, but I really like him. He's so consistent that he's just been putting a show on for his owners every single week. Number 4, D-Hop, coming off of not the best performance. He plays New England this week. I think D-Hop bounces. Again, another bad matchup for receivers. But D-Hop, he's done this before where he's had a bad game and then he's bounced back and thrown up a 30 bomb or a 25 bomb, something like that. You can't put D-Hop outside of the top 5 in fantasy because he's just that good. Number 5, give me DK Metcalf versus Philadelphia. Like we said, last time he played Philadelphia, he did very good. DK Metcalf, he could have had a much better week if he would have caught that touchdown. Even though he did already have a good week last week, but if he would have caught that touchdown, his numbers would have been inflated a lot more. Number 6, Michael Thomas. Looks like he's back. He may be even higher next week, depending on what he does this week. But it looks like Michael Thomas is back. You might be scared of Taysom Hill if you're a Mike Thomas owner, but Taysom Hill didn't even have that bad of a game. His arm looked really strong. He looked to Mike Thomas a few times deep too. Michael Thomas couldn't haul it in every time. But Michael Thomas did put up 19 points. It looks like he's back, getting the targets he should be getting. Number 7, Stephon Diggs, coming out of his bye week, playing the Chargers. Again, another bad matchup for receivers, but it is Diggs. He was the number 1 receiver on the year before his bye week. Number 8, Terry McLaurin versus Dallas. I debated putting this guy higher. He's been very good and very consistent lately. Plays against Dallas on Thanksgiving. He's got a lot to prove this week. Hopefully, he could put up some stud of the week numbers versus Dallas. I'm excited to see him play on Thanksgiving. Number 9, a guy that I didn't even have in my top 15 last week. But how good he played this week, he's got to be here. Robert Woods versus San Francisco. And he played good versus San Francisco the last time they played, I believe. It is a tough matchup. It is San Francisco. But expect Robert Woods to do pretty good as he and Cooper Kupp also had Cooper Kupp had a good game, but he's not going to see this top 15 because of how inconsistent he usually is. Number 10, let's go with Tyler Lockett versus Philadelphia. Same thing with Metcalf. Philadelphia is not too good. I think they're right in the middle range when giving points to receivers. Tyler Lockett has huge upside every week. He put up 20 last week. He's a safe play usually every week, even though sometimes he can put up a dud for you. But I'm safe putting him at 10, no higher, no lower. 11, Justin Jefferson versus Carolina. Thielen will have COVID this week, will not be playing. Most of the targets should be going to Justin Jefferson. I don't know if that's going to hurt him or help him with Thielen not being on the field because he's going to receive a lot more attention from the defense with Thielen out. So that's why he's a little bit lower than he was last week. So it could help him being the only guy there, but it's going to be a run-heavy game definitely for Minnesota. But we'll see how Justin Jefferson can play. Number 12, Calvin Ridley versus Las Vegas. We just saw Tyreek Hill cook Las Vegas up. Ridley is a touchdown. He goes crazy in the end zone, in the red zone. I mean, he gets a lot of touchdowns. He should do good against Las Vegas and maybe even climb these rankings next week, depending on how good he does this week. Number 13, DJ Moore, a guy I had in here last week, and he impressed us this week. Again, back-to-back weeks with good numbers. He plays Minnesota, one of the worst teams versus receivers. He's set to have a good game again. Number 14, these started to get really tough for me. There's a lot of receivers down here that could be in this bottom 15. But I went with the guys I felt most confident in. I'm going at 14, Tyler Boyd against New York Giants. He is having quarterback troubles. I debated not putting him in there, but he has been super good the past few weeks. And I think that's good enough for me. I mean, with the backup quarterback in, they usually go to their best guys. So expect Boyd to do all right. I mean, they're not going to do as good as with Burrow, obviously, but I trust in Tyler Boyd. You could throw Will Fuller up here. He has a good matchup, too. He's an honorable mention for sure. And at 15, I'm going with Deontay Johnson versus Baltimore. 2 back-to-back weeks with very good numbers. I think you could even move Deontay above Tyler Boyd and put him at 15. But Deontay Johnson does have a tougher matchup, which kind of scares me versus Baltimore. He got injured versus Baltimore the last time he played them, I believe. So that is why his game was pretty bad. But he's been looking healthy the past few weeks. He has set himself apart, I think, as the wide receiver one on the Steelers. I think if you're having trouble like starting a Steelers wide receiver, I think this is the guy from now on, unless he somehow gets hurt again, which will be very sad. And then that's rounds out the top 15 for me, receivers.
Yeah, I would say over there in Pittsburgh, I would probably go Deontay, then Claypool, then Juju, because I like Claypool. He's been a touchdown machine this year. 10 total touchdowns. But let's get into QBs. Number 1, give me Deshaun Watson against Detroit. I feel like he has a huge week this week against Detroit either way. But like I said yesterday, if Detroit has Galladay and they have their big offensive weapons, then they could pull out like they think they will if they do. Allen against the Chargers. I believe the Chargers are ranked 24th against QB. So Josh Allen could have a huge week, or he could just decide to not know how to throw the football anymore. You never know. 3, Patrick Mahomes against Tampa. It's Mahomes. I mean, you ain't got that much besides that. Mahomes cooks every defense up. If there's a defense that hasn't been cooked up by Mahomes, that ain't going to last for long. Herbert against Buffalo. Buffalo, another one of those guys who just give up a lot of points to quarterbacks every week. Herbert has been a very consistent top 5 QB pretty much ever since he became a starter. I mean, I don't think there's been a single week besides, I think, that game against Carolina, I believe, where he hasn't put up 20 points or 20-plus points. And you need that out of your QB. A guy like that, and he's on pace to have a record-breaking rookie year. Give me Herbert at 4. 5, Give me Kyler Murray against New England. The only reason I don't have Murray up higher, like he usually should be. One, New England, they're about like 6 against QBs, but their defense hasn't been phenomenal. And he's dealing with that injury. Even if he might play, he might still be recovering from that. I don't know if that'll limit him like it did against Seattle, but the other matchups are better in my opinion. So I want Murray at 5. 6, Russell Wilson against Philadelphia. I mean, it's pretty interchangeable. Everyone in this top 6 you can put wherever you want. But these are just how I think everything's gonna play out. The bottom 4 though, it's some of them are kind of toss ups. Give me Derek Carr against Atlanta at 7, a little bit high for some people, but Carr's looked great all season. He's been very accurate. He played great against Kansas City, and I feel like Atlanta, he could have a huge game, maybe a top 3 game. Ryan against Las Vegas. Las Vegas has also been known to give up a good amount of points to QBs. Matt Ryan coming off of a bad week. Usually when that happens, he goes up and puts up like 35 the next week. And because of that, I feel like I kind of disagree with the lower ranking of Calvin Ridley. I would put Ridley a little bit more higher. But either way, I still feel like Matt Ryan's going to have a good week this week against Las Vegas. At 9, give me Cam Newton. His rushing upside is enough to make me put him into the top 10. And he played a pretty good game against Houston last week. So against Arizona, I feel like Cam could be at that bottom tier, top 10. And then at 10, I don't care. I didn't think I'd be saying this at all this season. Give me Taysom Hill against Denver. Same thing with Cam Newton. That rushing upside has been phenomenal. I mean, he had more rushing yards than Alvin Kamara did this past week. And then what was it, like 56, 60 something rushing yards, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns. That's the type of upside you can't ignore. And Denver, they're not the best defense, especially because they've been banged up this year. So because of that rushing upside, I gotta put Hill over guys like Lamar and some other great matchups. But that's my top 10 QBs.
All right, getting into the tight ends. Number 1, Travis Kelce. His matchup is Tampa Bay. I don't care what his matchup is. He's number 1 every single week. Number 2, well, let's just say this. Number 2 is Waller, but if you're in an ESPN league, number 2 is Taysom Hill. If you can play Taysom Hill in the tight end spot in the ESPN leagues, I believe that's the one that you
They
can.
actually just removed his eligibility. Like this week,
really?
you can't play him at tight end anymore.
Okay, well, never mind that, but I'm sure you guys were feasting this week if you did have him at tight end. That's a cheat code at tight end. You basically have a quarterback at tight end, starting quarterback. Number 2, Darren Waller versus Atlanta. Really good matchup. Darren Waller's basically always going to be number 2, right behind Kelce. With Kittle out, Waller is the number 2 option, in my opinion, every single week. Number 3, a guy that I ranked really low last week, and he's been impressive for 3 weeks in a row, Mark Andrews. He does have a tough matchup versus Pittsburgh, but he's getting back to the old Mark Andrews. Lamar Jackson is kind of seeing that he needs to go to Mark Andrews like he did last year to succeed, and that's very good for Mark Andrews. He's getting so many more targets than he was in the beginning of the season, and that's really good for Lamar and Mark Andrews. Lamar's finally seeing what he needs to do to succeed. Number 4, TJ Hawkinson versus Houston. I had him at 3 last week. He's not moving much. He's a solid 10 basically every week. He was injured, though, 2 weeks ago. That's why he put up like 3. He kind of had a toe injury, but I think that's pretty much past, and he's back to his old self. Number 5, a guy I've been liking the past few weeks. He was on a bye last week, I believe. Give me Ingram versus Cincinnati, the 29th ranked team versus tight ends. Ingram got that speed upside. He's definitely the number 1 target on that team, in my opinion, for Daniel Jones. Number 6, let's go Eric Ebron versus Baltimore. Another thing like Mark Andrews, he's been succeeding the past 2 or 3 weeks. He's getting a lot more targets than he usually does. Ben Roethlisberger's looking at tight ends when all of his receivers are clamped. It looks like Ebron is emerging as maybe a top 5 tight end by the end of the season. Number 7, Hunter Henry. He scored a touchdown last week. He plays Buffalo this week, who sucks against tight ends for some reason. He's looking good. And at number 8, let's go with Jonnu versus Indiana. I debated not put him in the top 10, but he's got a touchdown the past 2 weeks. He is playing Indiana, who is the 2nd ranked versus tight ends, I believe. He did score a touchdown, but it was kind of fluky against them last time. It was like a rushing touchdown. They like faked it to Henry, then gave it to him. That could happen. He does have the touchdown upside every week, but if he doesn't get the touchdown, it's like he sucks. I think he's touchdown dependent at this point. I think I can say that. But he's been getting touchdowns the past 2 weeks. I think you can trust him, but I'm not gonna say like you can trust him too much. Number 9, Tanyan versus Chicago. He scored a touchdown last week, and he's going upward in targets from that big game he had. He went downwards, and the last few games he's been going upwards in targets. I think he's a safe tight end. Playing Chicago, who also does suck against tight ends. And number 10, Dallas Goedert. He put up almost 20 points last week against the Browns. I believe he was the guy that got a touchdown. It might have been I
It
think
was
he got a
both of them.
touchdown.
It was
Okay,
both
yeah,
tight ends
both
actually got
both tight
touchdowns.
ends got a touchdown. Both of them are probably pretty good plays against Seattle. Not the best defense. I like Goddard this week. He snuck into the top 10 for me.
All right, and then getting into the waiver wire. I'm high on the Giants this week, so give me Wayne Gallman. Pretty much the lead back for the New York Giants. I don't think Devonta Freeman is going to be coming back this week. Plays against Cincinnati. This defense is not great at all in Cincinnati. He's 41.1% owned in NFL leagues. So go out there and pick up Wayne Gallman. What about you?
Yeah, this Wayne Gallman thing isn't a joke anymore, guys. You have to look at these numbers he's been putting up. 16, 13, 14, 19. Had the bye week. Like, this guy's actually a stud now. He's definitely the number one back in New York, and he's looking good the past few weeks. I say definitely pick him up. I think he's a solid running back option, especially with running backs getting very slim, very, very slim going into this playoffs. I think pick him up and stash him on your bench or even play him this week.
And then what about your wide receiver?
Curtis Samuel, I think a guy we've talked about in previous weeks, but we haven't talked about him too much. He's been an absolute beast. 4 out of his past 5 games, he's had above 17 points, and he had 21 this past week. He's looking really good, and this whole I think he's moving above Robbie Anderson in my opinion. Robbie Anderson has not been doing that well lately, and Curtis Samuel has been picking up that slack of Robbie Anderson kind of falling. But he's looking really good the past few weeks.
All right, I'm gonna continue to ride high on the Giants. Give me Sterling Shepard against Cincinnati, 35.2% owned. And even though a lot of people like Darius Slayton better, I like Shepard better. I think Shepard's a little bit more consistent. And if there's nobody, if it's not Evan Ingram, I feel like Daniel Jones loves looking Sterling Shepard's way. When he has played against good defenses, he has shined. And this Cincinnati defense, not the good defenses, but good matchups, basically. I feel like Shepard could put you at least be a good flex or wide receiver 2 option here this week. And then for my special teams or defensive special team streamer this week, I'm going to have the Browns against Jacksonville. They had a great game against the Eagles, I believe the top defense last week. And even if Minshew is out there, I mean, it's just I don't know. This Browns pass rush. It looks like Myles Garrett could be back, and their secondary has been playing a lot more specifically, Denzel Ward has been playing great recently. So I think the Browns are a good streamer this week. If not that, then hell, I'm gonna go Giants on all of them. Giants against Cincinnati. Their backup quarterback is gonna turn the ball over.
Give me the Saints. They put up 16 points versus Atlanta. I'm excited to see what they can do against Denver this week, who is the 31 ranked team versus defenses. They've been a stud defense, and they've probably been winning people some games the past few weeks. I told you to pick them up 3 weeks ago, and those 3 weeks, the past 3 weeks, they've been going off every single week. And they played Denver this week, a pretty terrible offense. Drew Lock's bound to throw at least one pick. He's bound to throw at least one pick and get sacked a few times. I mean, I think the Saints are a very safe play this week.
And that rounds off the fantasy episode for today, guys. Just go off these rankings. It does look like some big guys are going to be coming back with Eckler and Carson, and Michael Thomas finally starting to look good. So it does look like some people are about to make some really hard runs for the playoffs. I know it's pretty close when it comes to our league, but hope we help you out. Especially with the waiver wire, this is really around the time where streams are pretty much going to be winning you these last couple of games. That's how it's always been for me in this past year. So yeah, take what we said into account. Hopefully you can help make this pretty much be your path to the playoffs if you haven't clinched it already. Have a good Thanksgiving, guys. Have fun watching football. We'll see y'all guys next week. Peace.